Chad Silversmithing. Before we get too far in, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, that really helps promote my channel. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I also love it when you leave comments, so don't forget to leave a comment before you leave. Today I thought my wife and I are both former English teachers, and so we have lots of books. And when brainstorming for ideas for this week, we thought, wouldn't it be kind of cool to make a locket that looked like a book? And so I'm going to try and make a book-shaped locket with a hinge on it and a little clasp. We'll see how it turns out. I'll try and make it sort of old-fashioned-y looking. And I think I'm going to use silver and with a little bit of copper furniture on it. So we'll see how that turns out. Test my sawing skills today a little bit, and it should be fun. Before we get started, though, I wanted to thank my patrons over on Patreon. I wanted to especially thank Billy Y for signing up. I really appreciate you coming over to my Patreon. Thanks also to my previous members of Patreon. I really appreciate all of the support, both financially. I appreciate all of the cool ideas and suggestions you guys come up with, as well as all the knowledge that you have. So thanks for that. I also wanted to thank my YouTube subscribers. We're getting close to 8,000. We're in between 7,900 and 8,000. Let's see if we can't push that up over 8. That would be great. Thank you so much for all your support and contributions, especially those buying me a coffee, which is actually just giving me a little cash infusion to help buy supplies. So thanks for that. I appreciate that. I love all of the very nice comments. Some people say some really kind things to me, and I appreciate that a lot. I hope you know that. With all that being said, let's get started on this project. Alright, so here's my design idea book. These are available in my merch store if you're interested. They're great for drawing up your designs, and they also support the channel if you buy them. So here's what I thought up so far, and there's a lot of different ways you could do a book that opens up, and I'm still not sure about the bail. I may attach rings on the corners and do a split chain like that. I don't know. I think that seems more logical to me than something like this. Basically what I'm going to do is build a box, and it's going to have 3 sides that look like, that have lines going along them this way so that it looks like pages from the side. And then on the front here, I'm going to use a piece of 18 gauge as well as on the back. I'm going to texture that with a pattern that I have that sort of looks leathery. So we'll do that to give it kind of some texture. And I'm going to put a hinge on the back. I'm probably not going to do that many tubes like that. I'm probably going to do 3 or 5. Probably 5, but that'll hinge open right there. But I want it to be a little bit thicker than that. That tubing is very small. That'll just be the top part of that hinge, or top part of the spine of the book. The rest of the spine is going to be a piece of low dome half round, so it's relatively flattish with a slight dome on it, but it's kind of tall. I think it's about I don't know, 5 or 6 millimeters tall. I'll show you a piece of that in just a bit. Where is it here? I can show you right now, I guess. It's going to be like this. So, and then there will be a back piece on it too. So there's going to be hinges on top of this, and we'll see how I assemble it. I'm still kind of formulating this in my mind. I've got ideas, and they may or may not work. So we'll see as we go. That's kind of a fun way to explore this sort of a thing. Like I said, the pages from the side are going to be a piece of 22 gauge that I'm going to striate with lines down it, probably using the saw and maybe the file. I'll probably put some indents along the spine here to make it look like kind of spine decorations on an old-fashioned book, and I'll probably line those up with the whatever number of hinges that I put up there, or hinge tubes, I should say. I'm going to try and cut out a little fleur-de-lis kind of thing, and it's going to go hopefully like this, with a little peg sticking out that has something you can twist sideways. I'm not 100% sure on the design on this yet. However, I have some ideas, so I may bend the peg over and then flatten it a little bit, and then cut kind of a slot in this one here so it fits through there. But I think this one's going to be fixed against the top like this, and this one I may have to hinge it on the bottom. We'll see. I'm not sure. I may be able to just, the copper is flexible enough maybe I'll just slide it over and pop it in there. So I'm not sure. We'll play with that and see how it works. Other than that, I think the hardest part is going to be cutting out the fleur-de-lis kind of thing. I'm going to have to do some relatively fine sawing there. We'll see if I can do that. These things I'll probably do from copper as well, and those are going to be just quarter circles, so I can just punch out a disc out of copper with my disc cutter and then cut it into fourths. So that should be pretty easy. I think to start with, though, we need to take the 18 gauge pieces of sheet and put a texture on them. So I pre-cut those to save time a little bit, and they're both a little bit, they're pretty close to the same size as this. But when I roll them through the rolling mill, they're probably going to stretch out just a little bit, so I may need to cut them down again to get them to be about that size. And this is the pattern that I'm going to use. It's got kind of a wavy, it looks sort of organic-y. And I use that when I want something to look like leather. Got this a long time ago. I think you can still get them at Parawire, these kind of sheets. Okay, got that tightened down some. Let's see if we can get that to go through. Okay. See that now? It's got kind of a texture to it. So I'm going to do that same thing with this one, with the back. I just tighten this until it feels snug and then tighten it a little bit more. Not too much. If you get too crazy, it'll squish that 18 gauge pretty flat. And I want a good impression, but I don't want it to be too much thinner. So that's pretty good. All right. So we got our two pieces of leathery looking silver now. So if you're new to this, when you put a lot of pressure on silver, or if you pound on it or bend it back and forth or twist it, it does what's called work hardening and makes it very stiff and hard to bend. So in order to get it soft again, we do what's called annealing, and that's where you heat it up to the point where the silver is kind of getting pretty hot and a little kind of a reddish hue to it. And then you just let it cool down. That'll soften it back up. Cleanup filing for rough edges on here. I think that's pretty close. Okay, so I want the pages to be inset just a little bit, I think. And I think if I use my little calipers, I can scratch a symmetrical line all the way around those. Just kind of go like this. I think that'll be good, like that. Okay, so I need a piece of 22 gauge sheet that's as long as that, plus that, plus that. So I'm going to cut it slightly longer than that so I have extra space to work with in case I make a mistake. And that's about 15 long, so twice that, so that's 30 plus 22, 30 and 22 is 52, so 52 millimeters plus a little bit more probably, so about to right there. Okay, and I think I'm thinking right. I want it to be about as tall as this, so we can just use this kind of as a guide. Might cut it a little bit wider, just to give me a little room to work with. If you're a big fan of sawing, you can always saw this. My feeling is I should put the the designs in it before I bend the corners, because to bend the corners I'm going to cut a little notch on one side so it bends nicely. And to get the pages to look like pages all the way down, I think that would be the best bet, probably. I think for this I'm going to try and just do a whole bunch of parallel lines. That actually looks pretty good like that. I might just leave it like that and only give it a light polish when I do it. But we'll see. I can always probably go back over it with a pin and make them sharper again. I guess I don't need a hugely deep design for that. This is where I want that bend to be, so I'm going to move it just a little bit out from there to compensate for the turning inwards. And that's where we'll file those. So that should line up pretty close to those two, yeah? Okay. So for this, I'm going to take my bastard file. I'm going to try and turn that groove to a deeper groove. And by doing that, we should be able to kind of bend these more sharply, like this. Let's see how this works out now. That'll be going about right there. I think the first thing we need to do is solder these joints here on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flux it, and then I'm going to pick up a little bit of solder with my pick and touch it on the insides of those. It's called pick soldering, and it's one of those skills that takes you kind of up to a new level if you master it. So if you're interested in learning about that, I'll put a link to my pick soldering video up here. You should check it out. It's worth learning. So, alright. If you've never watched my videos, I also use hard silver sheet solder for just about everything, which those little pieces are. And a spray-on flux called My-T-Flux. Where are you, soldering pick? There you are. So I think our next step ought to be maybe to solder this on here. Try and get it where we want it. Just come back here. Just kind of push those up against the sides there. Sometimes you can use the flux, kind of gets sticky when you start to dry it. You can use it to kind of hold things in place when the solder wants to jump around on you. Alright, that should be good enough. Okay, so I think this piece is half round wire, which is a low dome half round. I think it's the second narrowest low dome half round that Rio has to offer. I'll try and remember to put it in the description, but I want that soldered so it sticks out to the edges. So I'm going to have to trim off just a little bit of this stuff, so I'll be right back. I'm going to file down one side of this just a little bit so that the tube that I'm going to mount on top, which is it's the sort of tube that fits right inside, or that 18 gauge wire fits right into, and it's 1.73 millimeter outside diameter, 0.3 millimeter wall silver tubing. It's about that big, so I need to file off about that much of it, at least. Well, actually, let's do it from, I don't want it to extend all, do I want it to extend all the way up? Maybe I do. I do want the tube to extend all the way out. So I'm going to, I think, file off one side of this about the width of this, maybe a little bit less, so that it's just about right for to hook the secondary tubes to the top sheet that's going to go on top. My words aren't working very well for me today, so forgive me. This would be the perfect necklace for that bookworm in your family, which in my case would be me. Or my wife, actually. We're both pretty bookwormy. I think since a hinge has to fit in here too, I'm going to file a little bit inwards there, right at the top corner. Okay, that's probably good enough to start. So I think the easiest way to get this tube on the top edge would be just solder it on like this. So I think what I'll do is I'll just I'll pre-melt a little bit of solder. It's called sweat soldering onto the tube, and then we'll just roll it up against there and heat the whole thing till it sticks together. You can just space a few pieces out along the length of this. You get enough on there, it should just run the entire length when I get it to flow up against this other thing. One more on, just for good measure. What you don't want is any solder flowing into the tube itself. So the cool thing about solder is that if it's got a nice straight line and you got enough solder there, you get everything to the right temperature, it'll just kind of wick right along that whole seam. That's a convenient thing to know about silver and soldering in general, I suppose. That looks pretty good. So let me cut a little bit more solder. I'm just going to do it along the bottom and maybe pick a little bit where the rest of that is. Quite a bit more mass in this piece than that back piece. So I'm going to focus much of the heat over here. The excess heat's bleeding off over there anyway, so that should get pretty hot. going to go ahead and cut it off to the width of the book itself. Okay, we have to decide what to do next. I have the base of it here, along with the one side of the tube hinge. And so I need to cut out this thing, and I need to do the little discs here out of copper. And so I think maybe let's do those things next. See how my sawing is today. And my disc cutting is pretty easy, but sawing is a little harder. So let's go do that. I don't know if you can see it on here, but I've sketched out a little fleur-de-lis with a stem on it too. And there's enough over here where I can cut the disc out that I need probably. I might do 2 of them. But I'll drill some holes to get this started too for sawing that out. This is a disc cutter if you've never seen one of these before. It has a series of holes through it at different sizes, and it's got a slot on the side. So you stick a piece of sheet into the slot after you've decided what size hole you want. Put this little peg with kind of the sharp corners on it, and then pound it through there. So see if I can get this where you can see what's going on. Let's see if I can put this side over in here. Yeah. You have to hit it pretty hard to get it through in one hit. So got a nice little disc. So sometimes it's hard to get it back out of here though. Let's do one more just so we got enough. I haven't decided whether I'm going to put these on the back or not. Probably will, if I don't have too much trouble mounting them on the front. I have 000 on the saw here, so I can do pretty delicate curves and stuff. Well, I could if I was good at sawing anyway. We'll see how I can do tonight. I drilled some holes. You can see one of them kind of chattered around a little bit because the tip of the bit broke off and I didn't see that. So I break a lot of bits through there. Okay, see if I can saw it today or not. That's probably far enough. I can cut the rest with the craft shears. So I need to make a little peg to go through the hole here. That's going to be our little latch. And I'm going to use some 16 gauge round. Just got some fresh 16 gauge round. I think I'm just going to go ahead and just melt the end of this so it balls up, and then I'm going to file it flat so it will have kind of a stop in place. So that ball is big enough to stop it from going through there, but I don't want it sticking out that much, so I'm going to flatten it out a little bit. And it kind of end up looking like a finishing nail. Still catches there, but it doesn't stick out near as far. Okay, so we're going to need another hole through another piece that's about this wide, so I think I'm going to make it the same width as this. So let me find some more of that sheet. I could have, if I was better at sawing, done a second fleur-de-lis for the back, but I didn't think I'd probably do it twice. Oops, got that backwards. So, this one I believe I can cut off right there for now. Straight across there. And for this one, I'm going to drill a hole, but then I'm going to cut a slot with a saw, because I'm going to bend this peg over. Where did that peg go? There it is, right there. I was going to originally flare the end out, flatten it, but 16 gauge just doesn't have the volume to do that, to make a nice thing that you could grab easily. So I think once I have it through here, I'm just going to bend it over. Pretty close to there so it'll swing. It'll just be a little handle that we can turn. So, alright, well I got the right distance on this one. I need to find the center of this, and then I'll drill a little hole in that. I'll be right back. Okay, it's time to start putting embellishments on. I got this cut into a slot, kind of like that. Okay, let's cut one of these circles into quarters. If I can do that, let's see. I can get two out of this one if I cut it a little thinner. I didn't quite get it in the center, so I'll have to punch out another one. Oh, that's a little better. I don't want a huge amount of solder because I don't want it bleeding over. Nobody wants to have your solder bleeding over. Okay, let's see if we can get these positioned where I want them. Pretty good. This one's a little bit off, but that's alright, a little tiny bit. Okay, this is going to go right here. So, I think we need to sweat a little bit of solder the back side of that. Then we'll figure out a way to position it so this flows. Quit jumping around on me. That looks pretty good. A couple of things I need to do. While I'm thinking of it, I think I am going to put the jump ring on either corner up here in order to attach the chain. And then we need to solder the tube on the upper edge of this back sheet here. And then we'll be able to cut out the pieces we need to cut out in order for that to become a hinge. Okay, let's add some jump rings up there. This I can push it down into the pad a little bit so that these particular rings actually solder to, this is a softer pad called a magnesium block. And if I want those rings to not solder to the copper little corners that I just added, but actually onto the silver corner, then I'm going to have to push those down into the pad just a little bit. Well, we'll have to see how that worked. I think maybe we got it. Feels like it's on there. Okay. Let's make sure we can still put a piece of 18 gauge through that tube. Not sure if that's 20 or 18. Here's a piece of 18. Yep, no solder on the inside, so we're good there. All right. Let's do this. So now we got to get a piece of tubing soldered right onto the top of this. So let's do that next. That's ideally where I want it anyway, so. Okay, now we need to figure out where we're going to cut the tubes at. So I'm going to make a purple. So we've got 26 millimeters. Let's find the center. So this goes away. Got to do opposites. This one's going to go away from here. This one's going to go away from here. And just the opposite on these ones. Okay, should be able to pull this apart now. Cut those tubes. So wherever they're scratched up, I'm going to remove them. So I'll use a saw to do that. Alright, so I got them kind of to where they fit in between each other after sawing them out, but I still need to make a little bit more room for these upper hinges to turn, and then in this slot here file that down a little bit. So I'll probably be doing that with the Dremel. So just gonna basically do that, but I'll do it quicker with the Dremel. I think I may have done enough adjusting and fiddling with it to get this to go in there. We'll see. Pin through. At this point, I'm going to pickle it for a while. This is one of the few times where I use easy solder for anything, because I really don't want any of that previous solder joints flowing in here, because that could cause the pin to seize up in there. So I'm going to pick solder a little bit of easy right on the edge of either pin and cut it off and file it flush, and then we'll finish it up after it's all. But I want to get rid of any excess flux or anything that's on there so that we can kind of control that for this last one. So I've let this pickle for a while, and now I need to solder the ends of this pin in, and this is one of the few times where I use easy solder, so I'm going to use this old easy solder I have. When I'm doing hinge pins is I like to just dab a little bit of flux right here instead of hosing it down like I normally do. So I'm going to put a little flux there. I usually bite the end off a toothpick and kind of chew it up a little bit. Make it sort of brush-like. So let's see if we can do this. Pretty good. Let's pick up a little bit of easy solder this time. we still have movement is the question. Looks like we probably do. Yes, we do. I think we're good. So I'm going to pickle that, and then I will polish it, and we'll put a chain on it, and then we'll be done. So we'll be back. So I got it pretty much done. Everything is great. It looks fine. I like the way the pages look and everything, and it opens and closes fine. The only thing I need to perfect is the clasp here. This is not a usable clasp so far. So I'm going to have to think about that and come up with a better way to do that. But overall, I like the look of it, and it's nice. So the big problem is that peg keeps falling out, and I haven't figured out a way to do that. So I'll have to do some trick that I haven't figured out yet. But I'll figure it out. Last thing I'll do is add I split a chain, and so I'll be putting the clasp side over here and the other side over here, and that'll be the way it hangs. So I'm going to go ahead and take pictures of it, even though I haven't quite solved the problem, so I can get the video out. And if I come up with a good solution, I'll post that in the comments or something. So I'll take some better pictures after I hook this all together and put them at the end. So. Alright, well, that was the book Locket pendant. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. I really appreciate it when you do that. It helps to promote my channel a lot. So feel free to leave a comment. I love suggestions, constructive criticism, ideas for videos. All those things are handy and useful. And either way, leave a comment, and I'd love to hear what you have to think. Also, if you enjoyed the content, you might take a few moments and peruse some of the other videos on my channel. I have over 250 videos now, so there's lots of content to pick from. There's some great playlists if you go to my playlist page. That helps you to navigate the site. But after you check that out, maybe consider giving me a subscribe. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. So. The last thing is, don't forget to check out the video description for relevant links. There's a Buy Me a Coffee link down there. There's a merch store link. There's a link to my website if you want to see some jewelry for sale. And there's a link to my Patreon stuff if you want to check out the details on that. So, thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.